Brandon Darby is joining us. He is the editor-in-chief for Breitbart Texas. He is also Breitbart Cartel Chronicle co-founder and director. He was on with me in April. And in April, we talked about this particular cartel and the head. And he said, the United States isn't serious unless we get this guy. But this guy is protected by their the Mexican Secretary of Defense. Well, apparently that has changed. So we wanted to bring Brandon on. First of all, Brandon, you've been reporting on this for years and years, if not decades. Did you ever think this day would come?
No. And Glenn, thank you for having me on. Good morning to you and your listeners. I am super excited. I did not expect this. I believed the Trump administration, when they were warning Mexico, they said basically, hey, you're going to get this guy, you're going to take this seriously, or we're going to take it seriously without your consent. And I thought that that's probably what would end up happening. I did not expect Mexico to play ball and actually help. No.
So why? What do you think the president said because I don't think the president of Mexico is a fan of America, and certainly not a fan of Donald Trump's. What did he say, do you think, that got them to act on this? Because this is a really big deal.
Right. So I think my best estimation at this point of what happened was that the Mexican president, Gloria Sheinbaum, knew about this, but that the rest of her cabinet did not. I know that roughly, was it probably February 15th or so, Navy SEALs began to train a group within the Mexican Army, Sedena, for a specific training that it was obscure, no one knew what it was about. Well, it turns out this is what it was about. So I know that those Mexican military folks were sequestered, so their phones, any mechanism they had to communicate with the outside world was taken from them, and they did this operation. The Mexican government did this operation. So I think that it's very well documented. The current Secretary of Defense for Mexico being, heavily connected with El Mencho. So obviously, they didn't know. So it was kept very secret. There is a possibility that this was done, without the approval of the Mexican president, but she is kind of running a victory lap so far. So I don't think that's the case. I think it really is a situation. If we look at the history, every time the U.S. has found El Mencho and tried to work with counterparts in Mexico to get him, El Mencho was tipped off and was told, hey, they're about to get you, so he would be missing or he would be gone. And this time that did not happen. This time it was kept close to the chest, and they were able to pull it off. And now he's gone. I question the narrative that El Mencho and two others were, injured and then were being flown to Mexico City, and they all happened to die on the helicopter ride to Mexico City, right? Like I question that narrative. I think that he was probably gonna die. He was probably killed. They probably decided, like, hey, if we let this guy, in our system, he is so connected that he's gonna get out. He's gonna be able to get out and kill our families. So I think they killed him. That's the most likely scenario. And now we are in a very different stage, as I've said before. If someone this powerful, the top of the top, can be taken out, it tells everyone in Mexico who's involved in cartels that they can also be gotten, and that they better keep it in check, or they might be.
What does it mean for the president of Mexico? Because she could have done this herself long ago. This obviously is, she's kowtowing to Donald Trump, or not.
Absolutely. Well, so if you look at the social media statements of Mexico's leading politicians and Mexico's leading journalists, they're doing everything they can to take credit away from Trump and the Trump administration and the Trump administration's approach. They're saying that this was, another person in the administration who pushed this. Trump had nothing to do with it, but that's not true. What happened is that
let's let them
Donald
believe
Trump,
that's true.
Yes, whatever they want to say, and I don't understand. I'm going to be honest with you. It's very difficult for me to understand the liberal mind, even though once when I was younger, I was one of them. They still just blow my mind with it blows my mind, right? The logic sometimes blows my mind, but
the mental gymnastics.
Okay. The gymnastics blows my mind that we, folks like you and I try to, and our movement holds us accountable to be intellectually consistent, right? That's okay. That they do it differently. That's fine. That's their business. But, what happened here is that Trump began to hit narco boats, showing that he was willing to do things that had not been done prior. Trump took out Maduro. He went down the line, and Pete Hegseth and others in the administration openly warned Mexico that you will either help do this or we will do it unilaterally because it affects our country. What Mexico began to do was to hand us, they started to crack down on cartels as a whole, and they started to hand us significant figures who we wanted. However, if you looked at it, the vast majority of them up until about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, were all of the opposition and all of the competition to Cartel Jalisco and El Mencho. So in an effort to appease us and look like they were taking it seriously, they were actually still helping El Mencho. They were protecting him, and they were taking out his adversaries as proof that they were serious about cartels. And a couple of months ago, we started to see them going after Cartel Jalisco. They took his number 3 guy, they gave him to the U.S. quickly because the last time he was arrested, he was let go, right? Immediately, a judge let him go. And so what happened was that they realized that you're either going to do this and help us, or the U.S. is going to do it alone, and the political fallout will be horrible for you if the U.S. takes unilateral military action in your country. And they decided to play ball and to actually roll the dice and go for it, and that's what they've done.
What is the fallout for us here in America? Because they have operatives all over the United States.
All over. I think that what we have to look at is we have to go back historically to what's happened with other cartels, right? Even though the other cartels did not have the level of power and influence that El Mencho had. But what happens is you have like the Gulf Cartel, who operates south of Texas along the Gulf of America, I call it. Some people say Gulf of Mexico still. They're antiquated, but I say Gulf of America. That cartel had centralized power of Mexico's central government. They had state power, all types of power. We began to decapitate them every time a leader popped his head up. And what you're left with is 10 to 15, glorified gangbanger units who really they no longer have central power over the central government of Mexico. They no longer really even have power over the state that they live in, Tamaulipas in Mexico. They just have county power and they're glorified gangs. And they still call themselves the Gulf Cartel, but they're so weakened at this point that they really don't have the type of power they've had historically. And that's what's probably going to happen here. There's going to be an uptick in violence, which liberals will blame on Trump, even though they're not crediting him with taking out the guy, right? That's what I meant by mental gymnastics. They'll blame the violence on Trump and on the United States, but there will be an uptick in violence as 4 or 5 different groups fight for power and fight for control. They'll become factionalized, and then we'll take out the heads of those groups, and then they'll become even more fractional and factionalized, and ultimately they'll no longer have central power over Mexico's government. And they'll no longer have that. They'll have regional power, and then we'll take them out. And then the next thing you know, they'll be reduced to having power over their block, their street. That's the goal. So the effects of this will be long. I do not think we'll see a lot of acts of narco-terrorism within the U.S. because of this. I don't know that, but I don't think so. I think that the statement made is that it doesn't matter how powerful you are. Like if you put yourself in a position to become the focus of the United States government, we can and will get you. And I think that this results in a lot of folks trying to keep their heads down and not being as ostentatious as El Mencho was when he was alive.
Are we going to see transformation of Mexico? Do you think do they have the stomach to finish this job, or is somebody else just going to step in?
Well, I think that's going to, it's a great question, Glenn. I think that's going to depend on what we do in this country. If the next time we get a leader, if that leader is very left leaning and soft on drugs and soft on crime, and if that leader is also soft on illegal migration, right? If that leader is soft on asylum claims and they allow tens of millions of people to show up at our border as they did in the last administration, keeping in mind that several of these cartels have business models that are primarily based on asylum claimants, right, and on illegal immigration. They were making as much or more, like various factions of the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas was making as much or more from the people showing up at our border claiming asylum than they were making from drugs. So if we do things in this country that increase the pull factors and increase the economic engines for various Mexican cartels, then we're going to be in trouble. But if we continue to, say in the best case scenario, right, say that we have J.D. Vance and he continues with the Trump policies and the Trump focus on Mexican cartels, I think that we have a very good shot at Mexico becoming a better place, which is very important for us because it affects us directly, right? You got to keep in mind, like Americans didn't want fentanyl, and then El Mencho began to manufacture fentanyl, right? El Mencho began to manufacture fentanyl, and then the desire for more of it, right? It was a push issue, not a demand issue. Obviously that's a complicated issue, but it was more of a push and not so much a demand that caused the supply. It was the supply that pushed the demand. And when it came to that, so it really just depends on what we do. But I can tell you this: if Mexico were going to become a better place, if our southern neighbor was going to get healthier, this is exactly what was required for that to happen. So this isn't the armistice. This isn't the end of the war. This isn't, Germany surrendering, but this is yesterday was definitely D-Day, right? And we definitely took land, and we definitely established a beachhead. And so I am very hopeful. I think this shows that the current Mexican president is actually trying to work with the U.S. No, I don't think she would have if it weren't for Trump's pressure. But regardless of that, this shows a serious step in the right direction.
Brandon, 45 seconds left. Talk directly to anybody who's thinking spring break's going to be great. I'm going to Mexico no matter what.
I would not allow my children to go to Mexico right now. I would not allow my children to go to even the safe areas like Cancun or Puerto Vallarta, because they're obviously not safe. But keep in mind, those are economic engines for cartels. As they fight each other, they're going to try to hurt each other's economic engines, and you just might find yourself or your child or your college student caught in crossfire. I would not do that right now. I would wait a bit on going to Mexico.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Brandon. We'll talk again. Great job on calling this one. You bet. Bye-bye. Thank you for thinking for yourself and being part of a movement, because that's really what all of this is. If you want the full story, you want to go deeper, go to blazetv.com/Glenn. Go there right now, sign up, no interruptions, just the truth, uncensored and unfiltered. Don't just watch, take a stand. And I'll see you over there in a minute.